We need to talk about where it went right, and then we can talk about where it went wrong. Because it went wrong. I do understand that.
Say it went wrong, yeah, but let's hear your side of the story first.
Yeah, not a perfect movie. Okay. What I think is that this story, and I think that when you talk comedy sequels, the most common gripe that a lot of people have is that they did the same thing. We're talking Hangover next week. Hangover 1, the reason people that we hated Hangover 2 is because it's the same exact movie.
Yes.
I think that they did something really interesting with the story that would make a really good standalone movie. But the problem is that it's a sequel. You have all the same characters, and it's a little stretch beyond the reality of the first movie. The first movie felt like it was grounded more in reality, but where this movie went wrong, I think, is that the characters got a little more like caricatured of themselves. Yeah. So like specifically Kurt, Jason Sudeikis' character, I think got a lot dumber, and it made it seem a little cornier. And then obviously they were just trying to, like, the stakes got higher, basically. There was more involved. And I think that's kind of where it went wrong. But
yeah,
you kept the cast, you kept that acting ability, and then you added another Oscar winner in Christoph Waltz and Christoph Waltz. And I said that weird for whatever reason.
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah. Chris, I think my voice caught. Chris Pine, obviously another great actor. And it added another element that this acting ability and the lines.
It's absurd.
This still, like, this relied more on bits than the first movie. But
1000%.
The bits were hilarious, and they were done so well because this cast is so good.
Okay, yeah, I will say, like, Christoph Waltz is incredible in anything he does. That man is a god at acting. Like, since Inglourious Bastards. Just been heavy on the Christoph Waltz train. You could put him in anything, and I think he would excel. I think the one bit that he did really well, and one of my favorite parts of that movie, where, it was hit or miss here and there, all of that. I think that my favorite was the golf course scene, where they literally just show up at the golf course.
with
they
balloons.
walk on with a cake and balloons.
Yeah. So this is my thing with this movie. And also, I'll just say this. I think what actually went wrong and where people don't like this movie is I think the second act was pretty slow. So like when Chris Pine was kidnapped and it was just those three and him, I think it probably dragged on a little bit. And that's a little bit probably where it could have went wrong. Mm-hmm. But like you were saying, the golf course scene there, it's a goofier movie. It's just goofier. But the problem is when you have a sequel, you kind of need to keep the same vibe. So I think if this was a standalone movie, it would be looked at as a good movie. But I think the problem is because it's a sequel, people compare it to the first one. And I don't think that it's necessarily that much worse. I don't think it's like the 70% to a 47% drop off. I think that's a little much.
I don't know, because I think that the first one was so much more grounded. And
there's no doubt.
Like, so much more grounded, and there was so much more that you could genuinely relate to, versus the second one kind of strips that away and more so continues off, like, makes them a little bit more or less believable, makes them a little bit stupider, makes the stakes so much higher, like, and, has everything involved. So they basically took the groundwork from the first one and said, like, okay, let's basically make a caricature of this movie and just emphasize everything.
Yeah, and I think that makes it a little bit of a turn your mind off movie. I think but that's what I'm saying. That's where it's too different as a sequel.
I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like a horrible movie. I would say like it's decent in its own right, but when you put it up against the first one, like you were saying, it's not in the same league. So
no, but I think if you're talking strictly comedically, like in terms of laughs, in terms of bits, I think it is. But as a movie being compared to the original is where I think it went wrong. Like I'm telling you, if this was just on its own, this would be regarded as a very funny movie, I think. Because it wouldn't have the precedent to be a very grounded, very original, awesome story. But I do think the story was good.
I think it would be in a category like a little bit, not
like a Hot Rod kind of movie. Honestly.
Yeah, like that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Not like a more bit heavy, like very.
We talk about
funny,
these movies all the time. That
like,
turn your mind off and laugh.
Turn your
you
mind
know?
off, enjoy the show, enjoy the ride. There may be some parts that you're like, nah, that maybe didn't need to be in there.
Sure.
But overall, like, you're going to laugh, you know?
And so, the huge problem there, even if it is funny, even if it does do well with that, is when you have the first movie be something different.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be looked at as worse. I don't necessarily think that's fair, but it is a sequel. So you have to put it that way. I just think that this gets unnecessary slack.
Well, I think the only reason, like we're saying, it gets slack is because it's the sequel. Like, if it were its own movie, it'd be up there with, like, you know, I'm looking at some similar movies now, like, that we might do down the road. I think it's in this category of, like, a, you know, Kicking and Screaming, or like, you know, maybe a Blades of Glory. Like,
okay,
yeah, definitely like in that kind of realm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a classic. Honestly, I think we can call Horrible Bosses a classic. And then the sequel, for whatever reason, is more of a turn your mind off, bit heavy movie. Yeah. I really enjoyed it, though, because I think I only watched it maybe once or twice before, and then I came back for this rewatch. And honestly, so I started late night, and I was like, oh, I'll just do it half and half. It kept me compelled enough. I watched the whole thing and just stayed up late. Like, and I normally don't do that. I really, really did enjoy this movie. I thought it was a fun watch, and I think if you go in with those expectations that it's going to be different, you're going to enjoy it, and know that the second act does drag a little.
Yeah, and maybe it was because I watched them literally back to back. Like 2 minutes later, I started the second one.
Oh, a marathon.
Where it was like it was a little harsher. It was the same length as the fucking Snyder cut. So I'm like, what can I do? Watch 2 movies or literally watch slow motion superheroes for 4 hours?
I'm so over hearing about the Snyder cut.
I know, same here. But look, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna end up caving and watch it.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm not going to.
I'm already mad that I know I'm going to.
So am I. I know that I'm upset with myself for dedicating that much time to it. Well, you know, what can you do? We're already in deep with it. But anything else you want to touch on the second, or is there?
I think I said my piece. I think that if people go in with a certain expectation that it's not the first one, even though it technically should be, it's a fun movie.
But okay, so what? I'll give it a 1 to 100 rating.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna go like 63.
But I would even say that's fair.
I'm gonna give the first one
I would
like
put it closer to 70.
I'm gonna give the first one like an 84.
Yeah. See, I would go
like around that.
I would go like 87 first one, and then I would put the second one at like a solid 70.
I think it's like 25% less for the second one.
That's
whatever that may be.
That's almost fair. That's
okay.
Now that I think about it, you're probably right. But
I mean, well, there is no right. That's what we're here to dispel. There's no right. Your opinion is your opinion.
Opinions are opinions. Comedy is subjective.
Well, actually, it could be very wrong, your opinion, but we're here for it. We're
if
here
it doesn't
to
agree
hear
with
you
mine,
out.
then yeah.
Yeah.